Now here's something that's going to rattle a few cages in Beijing. Thousands of U.S. military vehicles and tons of combat equipment just touched down in the Philippines. And no, this isn't your usual Balikatan routine. This is something far bigger, far louder, and let's just say, China's not sleeping well tonight. So what happened? Just a few days ago, a massive shipment of U.S. military hardware rolled off transport ships onto Philippine soil. And when I say massive, I mean we're talking Humvees, JLTVs, missile launchers, combat drones, radar systems, and everything else you need to start World War III in the Pacific. The scale of it? Unprecedented. It's not just the quantity, folks, it's the timing. This comes right after China's latest warning shots over Second Thomas Shoal, where the Chinese Coast Guard recently tried to muscle out Philippine resupply ships, again. Like clockwork. But this time, Washington responded with something a little more concrete than a press release. They delivered steel, wheels, and firepower. Now if you're watching this and thinking, well, it's just another military exercise, I hate to break it to you, it's not. What we're seeing here is the largest and most combat-ready forward deployment of U.S. gear in the Philippines in decades. And it's not just for show. It's a signal. A big, bold, unmistakable signal. The Philippines is no longer sitting on the fence. You see, Manila has had enough. After months of being harassed in its own backyard, the West Philippine Sea, the Marcos Jr. administration is now fully embracing U.S. military support. Not just in words, but in hardware. And China? Oh, they were definitely watching. Satellite imagery confirmed that Chinese surveillance drones began buzzing the port areas of Palawan within hours of the arrival. The PLA's own naval militia boats were seen tailing Philippine patrols the very next morning. Coincidence? Yeah, sure. But let me be clear, this is not just about islands and maps. This is about regional dominance, maritime control, and who gets to write the future of Asia. And right now, the US and the Philippines just moved their queen on the chessboard. If you're still watching this and finding these insights valuable, comment number 1 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you do it now and turn on the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Your support helps us keep delivering the facts China doesn't want you to hear. Why this changes everything, so let's talk about what this really means, because this isn't just a flex. This is a strategic earthquake. For decades, China's been playing the long game in the South China Sea. You know the script. They build artificial islands, they slap on some missile batteries, send in the Coast Guard, intimidate fishermen, then play victim when called out. Rinse and repeat. But this U.S. deployment just flipped the script. The arrival of these thousands of U.S. vehicles and advanced systems puts firepower directly within striking range of China's so-called 9-dash line. That imaginary boundary? It's been the root of all this nonsense. Beijing insists on owning almost the entire sea like it's some kind of imperial bathtub. Now the US and the Philippines are saying, not so fast. Here's the thing, this gear isn't just sitting there collecting rust. These systems are already being integrated into joint US-Philippine exercises happening across Luzon, Palawan, and even close to the contested Scarborough Shoal. What's different now is that we're not talking training dummies or blank rounds. We're talking live drills, real-time targeting, and actual war readiness. One military analyst called this the pre-deployment before the deployment. Translation? If China escalates, the response won't be coming from across the Pacific, it'll come from right next door. And the mood on the ground? Let's just say, it's electric. Filipino soldiers are calling this the return of the big brother. There's a new sense of confidence, even defiance. And honestly, it's about time. Because for too long, the Philippines has had to deal with Chinese aggression alone, getting rammed, water cannonied, and threatened while the world watched from afar. But now, the equation has changed. The US isn't just watching anymore. It's digging in, shoulder to shoulder. And you can bet China knows it. You see, just hours after the hardware landed, the Chinese Foreign Ministry had a full-blown meltdown. Their spokesperson went on live TV, calling the deployment a provocation, and accusing the US of inciting regional instability. Which, by the way, is hilarious, coming from the country that's literally built military fortresses on coral reefs. Let me say this is not just another chapter, it's the turning point. The arsenal, what just landed. Alright, now let's unpack the gear that just rolled off those military ships. Because this isn't just a bunch of Humvees and camo. This is next-level warfare tech, purpose-built to shake up the region. First up, the Nemesis system. You've probably heard the name before, especially if you've watched any of the Balikatan drills lately. But this time, it's not just for show. Nemesis is short for Navy/Marine Expeditionary Ship Interdiction System. But don't let the name bore you, this thing is a literal ship killer. Imagine this, it's a mobile launch platform mounted on a fast-moving armored vehicle. It can deploy anti-ship missiles from land, meaning Chinese warships hanging around contested waters? Yeah, they're now in the crosshairs from hundreds of miles away. And here's the kicker, it's remote operated. So even if it gets taken out, no American or Filipino soldier has to be in the blast radius. Now pair that with the 20 F-16 fighter jets coming as part of a $5.5 billion deal. These aren't your dad's F-16s. These are loaded with advanced guided missile systems, sniper targeting pods, electronic warfare tools, and precision air-to-air combat capabilities. Basically, if a dogfight breaks out over the South China Sea, these jets don't just survive, they dominate. Oh, and that's not all. We're also seeing deliveries of radar jammers, long-range missile launchers, anti-aircraft artillery, and even cyber defense infrastructure. That's right, this isn't just boots and bullets. The digital front is being fortified too. You know those slick new Chinese drones that keep buzzing Filipino patrol boats? Well, thanks to this new cyber gear, they're about to start having technical difficulties, if you catch my drift. But here's where it really gets spicy. Joint U.S. Philippine forces are now fully integrating. That means American tech is being operated with Filipino boots on the ground, Filipino commanders are sitting in on U.S. briefings, and soldiers are even training together in native dialects to streamline real-time battlefield communication. This level of fusion? Unprecedented. It's not just, you do your thing, we'll do ours. It's now a unified force, prepared to act instantly if China oversteps. And Beijing? Yeah, they're not exactly thrilled. Chinese state media is losing it, talking about red lines, threatening retaliation, and demanding the Philippines rethink their allegiance. But the message from Manila? Crystal clear. We're not backing down. The front line of freedom, so here's where it all starts to come into sharp focus. The Philippines isn't just reacting anymore. It's not just getting bullied on the high seas and begging the UN to step in. No, it's planting its flag right in the face of Beijing and saying, we're done being pushed around. And the timing? Not a coincidence. Just weeks ago, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel rammed a Philippine supply ship near Second Thomas Shoal. That's barely 20 nautical miles from Palawan, Philippine territory. The message from China was loud and clear. We can do whatever we want out here. But now they've got thousands of U.S. military vehicles and troops in their backyard. That's the game changer. The Philippines is officially transforming into the front line of freedom in the Indo-Pacific. This isn't just a support role or a passive ally anymore. This is ground zero for the defense of international waters, national sovereignty, and let's be real, democracy in Asia. And yeah, Beijing is feeling the pressure. You've got radars pinging, jets scrambling, and propaganda headlines flying off Chinese state media faster than they can translate them. They're accusing Manila of being a pawn of American imperialism. But here's the twist, they're not just worried about the Philippines. They're terrified of the precedent this sets. Because if Manila stands tall and says, no, to Chinese aggression, and backs that up with real military might and a locked-in U.S. alliance, then guess what? Vietnam starts rearming. Indonesia stops hedging. Taiwan starts training harder. It's a domino effect, and China knows it. Now, let's not kid ourselves. Nobody wants war. But what the Philippines is doing right now? It's deterrence by strength. It's the old saying. Speak softly and carry a big stick. Only this time, the stick is a F-16 with sidewinders, backed by a cyber division and satellite tracking support. And let's be honest, the Filipino people have had enough. They're tired of the harassment, the water cannons, the broken promises. This isn't just about politicians and generals. This is about sovereignty. About pride. About protecting their backyard. So yeah, it's getting real. Behind the deployment, what China didn't see coming alright, now let's pull back the curtain a little. Because what's happening on the surface, the convoys, the fighter jets, the headlines, that's just the tip of the spear. What's really shaking things up is what's going on behind the scenes. You see, Beijing thought it had time. Time to slowly expand, time to keep building airstrips on artificial islands, time to push their 9-line fantasy without anyone pushing back too hard. But here's the shocker. They didn't see the US and the Philippines getting this close, this fast. Let me break it down for you. Just a few months ago, the US quietly increased its Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, sites in the Philippines from 5 to 9. And they're not just building barracks and tents, they're laying down long-range missile systems, high-tech radar arrays, and logistics hubs that could supply an entire Pacific conflict. These new bases? Strategically placed. 2 in northern Luzon, just a short hop from Taiwan. 1 on Balabac Island, yeah, that's right near the Spratlys. It's not just defensive anymore. This is offensive positioning. And China is freaking out. And let's talk numbers. The US recently greenlit a $500 million modernization package for the Philippine military. That includes 20 brand new F-16s, top-shelf guided missile systems, sniper targeting pods, radio encryption tech, you name it. And guess what? It's not a loan. It's a gift. Straight-up military aid. You think China expected that? Nope. They thought Washington would stay busy with Ukraine or get bogged down in politics. But instead, the US is doubling down in Asia, and the Philippines is their strongest anchor. Now here's where it gets really wild. The Balikatan exercises this year? Bigger than ever. Over 17,000 troops, including US Marines, Australian forces, and even Japanese observers. And at the center of it all? Nemesis. If you don't know, Nemesis stands for Navy Marine Expeditionary Ship Interdiction System. Think of it like a mobile ship-killer platform on steroids. It's remote-operated, fast, lethal, and it can sink Chinese warships from the beaches of Palawan. Yeah. That's a nightmare scenario for China. So now you've got American firepower dug in, Filipino soldiers training like they're going into battle tomorrow, and a whole playbook of advanced tech ready to activate. And China? They're still busy trying to build fake islands and intimidate fishing boats. Look, if you can help us get this message out, like this video so more people understand what's really going down in the South China Sea. We're not getting this from mainstream media, so it's on us to tell the truth. And don't go anywhere. Section 6 is where we dig into China's biggest fear, the encirclement strategy, and how the US is tightening the noose. Yeah. It gets crazier. China's nightmare, the encirclement is real alright, buckle up, because this is where it gets brutal for the CCP. So far, we've talked about boots on the ground, gear off the ships, and missile systems that make Beijing lose sleep. But what really terrifies China? It's not just one country pushing back, it's the entire region closing in. This is what military analysts are now calling strategic encirclement. And no, it's not just a theory, it's already happening. Let's walk through it. You've got Japan rearming faster than anyone expected, breaking decades of pacifism to invest billions in hypersonic weapons and long-range strike systems. And guess who they're sharing intelligence with now? Yep. The Philippines. The US just brokered a trilateral defense data sharing pact between Tokyo, Manila, and Washington. That's game-changing. Then there's Australia, throwing its full weight behind the AUKUS alliance. Nuclear subs are on the menu, and joint training in the South China Sea is ramping up. They're not just watching from a distance, they're in this. And don't forget Vietnam. Oh yes. While Hanoi isn't exactly BFFs with Washington, they're sure not thrilled about China claiming their backyard. U.S. Navy ships are making more friendly stops in Vietnamese ports than ever before. Let's not sugarcoat it, Beijing is getting boxed in. The first island chain, stretching from Japan to Taiwan to the Philippines, is becoming a fortress. And China? It's stuck trying to break out without triggering a regional war it might not win. Here's where it gets wild. Recent satellite footage has shown China trying to rush construction on airstrips in the Paracels and Spratlys. Why? Because they know they're losing the mobility game. The US has forward operating bases in striking range. And China's response? They've been flying jets near Taiwanese airspace almost daily now, harassing Filipino fishermen, buzzing US ships. It's desperate. It's dangerous. And it's escalating. Now here's the kicker. The United States just activated prepositioned military stockpiles in the Philippines. That means if things go hot, US troops don't need to wait for supplies, they're already there. So ask yourself, why now? Because Washington is done playing defense. This is a power projection strategy, plain and simple. And the Philippines is the central piece of the chessboard. If war breaks out, here's what it could look like. Alright, now let's get real for a second. What happens if the unthinkable happens? What if China, frustrated and backed into a corner, actually pulls the trigger and starts a hot conflict in the South China Sea? You might think, oh, it'll just be skirmishes, some jets flying over, a few warning shots. But nah, this could get ugly fast, and here's how. First off, the spark. It won't start with a full-blown invasion. More likely? A confrontation near 2nd Thomas Shoal, or maybe Scarborough. Chinese Coast Guard vessels try to board or ram a Philippine resupply ship. A Filipino soldier gets injured, or worse. Boom. Red line crossed. The Philippines responds under its new defense protocols with the U.S.-Q joint retaliation. You'll see U.S. drones and spy planes in the air within hours. Satellite communications will light up. And then, missiles. Not fired, but moved into position. The Nemesis system? Already stationed in Palawan. Within striking distance of Chinese ships. And let's not forget the U.S. has access to 9 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, sites across the Philippines now, many of them strategically facing the South China Sea. Instant force projection. So now what does China do? Well, they've got submarines, long-range missiles, and a growing blue water navy. But the problem? They're surrounded. And the moment they try to break out of that first island chain, they're met with F-16s, F-35s, Aegis destroyers, and carrier groups from the U.S. Navy. Plus Japan and Australia aren't just going to watch. Cyber attacks start flying. Beijing hits banking systems. The West responds by blacking out China's satellites. Total chaos. And remember, the Philippines is no longer the underdog here. They're playing smart, they're armed to the teeth, and they've got the biggest military superpower on speed dial. This war scenario isn't just speculation anymore. Military exercises like Balikatan are literally rehearsing this. They're practicing amphibious assaults, anti-ship strikes, and joint naval deployments. And here's the worst-case scenario, this little dust-up in the South China Sea spirals. Taiwan gets involved. Then Japan. And suddenly, we're staring down a full-blown Indo-Pacific war. It's no longer about reefs or fish, it's about dominance. Control. Who gets to shape the future of Asia? And here's the wild part, China knows this. That's why they're rattling sabers and flooding TikTok with propaganda. But underneath the tough talk? They're nervous. Because the Philippines isn't backing down. What China really wants. The billion-dollar secrets beneath the sea. Alright, let's strip away the politics and the propaganda. Let's talk about what this fight is really about. Because let's be honest, it's not just about some uninhabited rocks in the ocean or fishing zones, and it's definitely not just about historical claims. No, this is about power, resources, and control, and the stakes? They're worth billions. You see, underneath the South China Sea lies a jackpot. We're talking about over 11 billion barrels of oil and 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Yeah, trillion with a T. And guess who's sitting right on top of it? That's right, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei. And China? China wants it all. Beijing isn't building artificial islands just to sunbathe. Nope, they're building military bases, airstrips, and surveillance hubs to lock down those resource-rich waters. And every radar dome they install? That's one more eye watching, one more threat looming. But here's where it gets shady. China's 9-line. It's not recognized by international law. In fact, in 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled in favor of the Philippines, saying China's claims had no legal basis. But did China back down? Of course not. They doubled down. Because for them, this isn't just about oil or gas. It's about controlling the most strategic sea lanes in the world. Every year, about $3.4 trillion in global trade passes through the South China Sea. That's nearly 1/3 of all maritime trade. If China controls those waters, they control the economic heartbeat of the entire Indo-Pacific. It's a geopolitical chokehold. And trust me, Beijing knows it. That's why they're willing to risk war. That's why they're sending their Coast Guard to bully Filipino boats and buzzing U.S. warships. They're testing how far they can go before someone snaps. But here's what's different now. The world is watching. And unlike 10 or 15 years ago, the Philippines isn't alone anymore. The US, Japan, Australia, and even India are stepping up. They've had enough of China's expansionist fantasy. And more importantly, they're calling its bluff. So yeah, this isn't just about territory, it's about who gets to set the rules for the next century. And the Philippines? They're standing tall in the middle of it. Cyber warfare and AI, the silent battlefield now, this next part? It's not something you'll see splashed across mainstream headlines. But make no mistake, it's one of the most dangerous fronts in this entire conflict. Cyber warfare. Yeah, while everyone's talking about warships, fighter jets, and missile launchers, there's another war being fought in the shadows, a war of information, algorithms, and invisible attacks. You think China's only building islands and flexing in the South China Sea? Think again. They're investing billions into AI-powered surveillance, satellite hacking, cyber espionage, and digital disruption tools that could cripple enemy systems before a single shot is fired. And here's where it gets even crazier. Just a few months ago, leaked reports from U.S. intelligence suggested that Chinese military-backed hackers had breached multiple communication nodes in the Pacific. We're talking satellite relays, radar data links, even parts of undersea internet cables. Their goal? To blind the enemy. To knock out comms, scramble GPS signals, and paralyze logistics before troops even hit the ground. So what's the response? Well, if you've been paying attention, you'll notice a whole lot more than boots landing in the Philippines lately. The U.S. has launched an advanced bilateral cyber defense initiative with the Philippines. And it's not just about firewalls and antivirus software. This is next-level stuff. We're talking AI-assisted reconnaissance, predictive threat modeling, quantum encryption systems, and real-time cyber drill simulations. The goal? To make sure that when China strikes digitally, they hit a brick wall. One key player in this setup is the deployment of Nemesis. Yup, we mentioned it before, but now you know why it matters. It's not just a missile platform. It's a data-driven war machine, linked with satellites, drones, and digital command systems. Nemesis can operate remotely, coordinate with AI, and fire on threats autonomously, and all of it runs on hardened cyber protocols built to withstand Chinese interference. This is the new reality. Wars aren't just fought on land or sea anymore. The front line is also inside servers, undersea cables, and encrypted signals. And the Philippines? They're learning fast. So when people talk about the U.S. delivering equipment to the islands, understand, it's not just tanks and helicopters. It's code. It's defense AI. It's tools that can shut down a naval fleet without ever leaving a harbor. And let me tell you, China knows this. That's why you're seeing more digital sabotage attempts, more cyber probes, and more AI development behind closed doors in Beijing. What happens next? Countdown to confrontation. So now, with all these pieces on the board, missiles in motion, cyber lines drawn, alliances fortified. What comes next? Well, here's the cold, hard truth that nobody wants to say out loud. We're closer to a military confrontation in the South China Sea than ever before. Think about it. The Philippines isn't just preparing anymore, they're positioned. With thousands of U.S. troops rotating through, with F-16s locked and loaded, and missile systems aimed right where they need to be, this is no longer just a drill. And China? Oh, they're watching. Every container unloaded, every war game run, every diplomatic handshake, they see it. And they're not thrilled. They're ramping up too. Just last week, reports came in of Chinese destroyers tailing U.S. ships within 50 nautical miles of Philippine territory. Fighter jets are flying lower, louder, and more provocatively than ever. And Beijing's rhetoric? It's turning nuclear. Seriously, state media just warned of a disastrous response if U.S. interference doesn't stop. Translation? The CCP is getting desperate. And desperate regimes do reckless things. So where does this leave us? Well, buckle up. Because what's coming could change everything in the Pacific. We're talking about a potential military alliance expansion, with Australia, Japan, and even South Korea weighing deeper involvement. We're talking about the Philippines becoming a key node in America's Indo-Pacific strategy. And we're talking about the growing possibility that the next flashpoint between superpowers might not be in Ukraine or Taiwan, but right here. On those beautiful white sands of the Philippines. Let that sink in. This is why everything you've seen, the convoys, the airstrikes, the exercises, it's not just noise. It's a signal. And that signal is clear, the countdown has begun. But the question is, will this be a deterrent strong enough to prevent a war? Or just a prelude to something far more catastrophic? Only time will tell. But you're not going to be in the dark. If you made it this far into the video, thank you. Seriously. You're one of the few. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today, or one prediction you have for what's coming next. I read every comment. And your thoughts? They help shape the direction of this channel. If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to understand what's really going on. Your support helps us keep digging, keep exposing, and keep telling the stories that mainstream media won't. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you in the next one. Who care enough to dig past the headlines? And I want to hear from you.